You're too big for him. The words hissed from between scarlet-painted lips, slicing through the silk-thick air of the Valencia mansion's powder room and landing with venom on Delia Macero's skin. A hand, thin, manicured, crowned with rubies, caught her shoulder and gave a purposeful nudge, shunting Delia off balance so her custom emerald velvet heel skidded on the polished rose marble. Her clutch rattled to the rich Persian rug, lipstick spinning away. 1,000 gold leaf mirrors watched her flinch. Ceremony laughter floated in from the solstice gala beyond, all naive to the primal cruelty curling beneath layers of French silk. Delia's full-figured frame made her stark among the wayfish models, but she stood her ground, silent, every muscle burning as if exposed. Through the open arch of the powder room's private lounge, the king watched, a silhouette etched in midnight wool, one hand curled around a crystal tumbler glowing with Macallan's fire. His eyes, colder than the winter drifts choking the hills outside, fastened on the tableau. The powder room's door closed behind another woman. Air rushed. Delia tucked her chin, smoothed her skirt, and stooped, just as the Mafia Boss's shadow advanced, heating the frozen gold with his presence. It hadn't always been like this. Most galas, Delia escorted spreadsheets and code, invisible among the luminously hungry. But tonight, the syndicate's new king had asked for her, by title, not just skill. She'd barely crossed the Valencia ballroom 2 hours earlier when a tide of perfume-wreathed bodies cut her off from the exit. Glass in hand, she found herself funneled into the onyx bar alcove, just as the grand double doors admitted him, the new Don Enzo Bianc. He ignored the whispers, the scattered feline cliques in glove-wrapped hands. His focus was total and direct, trained as if conjured for Delia alone. Their collision happened by the oyster station, a cascade of ice, champagne, and the exposed glint of diamond watches. Delia fumbled with her tray, Macallan nearly tipping over a mound of caviar. The tray swayed precariously, but Enzo's hand, impossibly warm, heavy with a signet ring, covered hers, arresting chaos. "Careful," he murmured, voice pitched low and smooth as black velvet. "No one expects you to serve kings, Delia." His use of her name sent a flicker low in her chest. "I'm so sorry, sir. She stammered, trying to steady both tray and self, cheeks burning at the proximity. Her body, broad-hipped and soft among marble and steel, pressed awkwardly back. He tilted his head, eyes flickering to the way her fingers, deft despite their size, snapped cocktail napkins with perfect precision. "You always count the glasses before you step, don't you?" The observation fell between them like a secret, unstated but intimate. A laugh stumbled out of her, brittle but grateful. "Somebody has to keep the numbers honest here." He didn't smile, but his grip lingered, thumb brushing her wrist. A tiny, deliberate gesture. His gaze, level and unreadable, held her in a silent cue that none dared break. Another guest tried to edge past Delia too close, but Enzo's body blocked the encroachment, a silent, muscular wall. "Mind your step," he rumbled, not looking away from her. He let the tension hang, then withdrew his hand, passing her a fresh napkin with a gesture precise enough to be a promise. "Stay near the lounge, Delia. Tonight, you don't answer to anyone but me." And with that, he vanished into the swirl of tailored suits, leaving her pulse riotous but strangely steadied. The night unraveled in crescendos of excess. Crystal clinked, sultry jazz bled across the ballroom, and matte-skinned heiresses competed to be seen. But it was Claudia Valencia, sleek in a scarlet sheath, eyes cut like knives, who carved her way through the crowd, locked onto Delia with pinpoint precision. "Well, aren't you decorative tonight?" Claudia purred, pulling Delia aside for a faux-friendly air kiss that missed by inches. "I'm shocked Valentino let catering dress up the help." Delia collected her clutch tighter, willing herself invisible. "I'm here on Don Bianc's request," she managed, but Claudia's laugh stabbed over her. "Don Bianc, please, you're an interlude, not an invitation," Claudia said, voice echoing for the small pack of model skinny socialites behind her. Others turned, sensing blood. Ice water from a crystal pitcher purposely sloshed, soaked Delia's wrist. Claudia feigned a gasp. "You really should watch where that weight lands, Delia." The word hung, pointed and cruel. Gasps, snickers. Delia's spine bit into the marble wall behind her. Her eyes blurred, but she would not stumble. She pressed a napkin to her wrist until the chill faded. Enzo was across the gala now, flanked by his lieutenants. But his eyes snapped to her, knife-fine, assessing. He watched as Claudia closed in, fingertips grazing Delia's sleeve, whispering, "You're too big for him, you know, don't fool yourself. He'll never parade you out front. Men like him break things that don't fit." That was the moment the pivot of humiliation finally measured for maximum impact. It split the charged hush. Delia wet her lips, forging dignity from splinters. "I suppose you'd know about broken things, Claudia," she replied, voice low but unyielding. "Your father's empire is mostly dust." A ripple half-laugh, half-shock moved through the crowd. Claudia's smile cracked. She leaned in, hissing, "Stay down, Delia, or I'll have you put out." Before Delia could retort, Enzo finally moved, liquid and lethal, crossing marble and gold. He planted himself between Claudia and Delia, knife-edged, chair scraping as he squared his shoulders to the heiress. "You have an odd way of thanking your accountants, Claudia," he said, voice a shade from dangerous. "Try that again and you won't be able to crawl back to your own house." Claudia tossed her hair, eyes burning. "Touchy. Are you sure you can afford the help he drags in, Delia?" From behind Enzo, one of his men slid him a phone. The screen flashed, "Armored truck hijacked. Shipment compromised." A chaos outside, mafia business crashing into the world of claws and whispers. Enzo's jaw tensed. "Handle her," he said softly to his lieutenant, meaning Claudia, though his gaze never left Delia. As the ballroom's energy pitched higher, new arrivals, urgent whispers, Delia felt Claudia's cold satisfaction prick her skin. But she kept her chin up and muttered, "You always overplay your hand, Claudia. Even diamonds burn." Enzo's hand caught Delia's elbow, firm, not tender. "With me, now." He guided her past Claudia's retinue, out into the private elevator. His presence was a barricade, blocking every accusation flung after her. As steel doors closed, the gala's champagne laughter faded, replaced by the muffled, urgent tempo of real crisis. Emerald light from the corridor bled into the private lounge, making the space feel less like sanctuary and more like a waiting room between fates. Delia sat, wetted napkin in hand, while Enzo's form hovered by the window, phone gripped tight. He turned. "How long has she been at you like this?" His tone specified nothing, but the inference was carved in granite. Delia looked down at the run of embroidered silk pooling against her thighs. "Since my first audit, her family needed a miracle, but I didn't wear their uniform." Enzo poured her a measure of Macallan, the amber liquid reflecting the cold in his eyes. "You saved them from bankruptcy last year." Claudia walks around on borrowed ground. "I was necessary, not wanted," Delia replied, fingers unconsciously tracing the textures of the luxury clutch in her lap. A low sound, not quite a laugh, rumbled from Enzo's chest. He set the crystal glass near her, but not before wrapping her wrist briefly with his hand. "Here, drink, and don't let her touch you again. If she tries, she answers to me." His words, the way each one was stripped to utility, landed between them heavy as fate. There was a knock, discreet, coded. Enzo's chief lieutenant entered, murmuring in Italian, "News, truck lost on 11th Avenue. Inside job, they say, warehouse access codes used." Delia's head snapped up. 11th Avenue, the Valencia import warehouse. Claudia's signature S on all the documents. Her passcode would open every cargo bay. Enzo's eyes narrowed further. "You remember codes from one look, Delia." She hesitated, the scrape of old instincts racing beneath her skin. "Numbers stick, details." A line appeared between his brows. "Stay here," he dictated. "I have to see the damage myself." But as he started for the door, Delia rose, planting herself in his path. "If Claudia's involved, you're going to need proof. Let me help." His mouth tightened, but he studied her for a full, loaded beat, then nodded once. "With me, but you don't leave my sight." Their near silence was not comfort, but a loom upon which something sturdy began to weave, distrust, perhaps, or something elemental, not yet named. He led her down the hall, hand at her low back, never letting the cold reach her skin. The Brooklyn waterfront was all night and metal, the sort of cold that seeps into your marrow and stays. 16 warehouses loomed along the East River, each lit by merciless floodlights and the staccato blue of police cruisers. At the epicenter, Enzo stalked through the carnage, Delia matching pace, his crew fanned out, muttering in Russian and Sicilian alike. Inside Warehouse 11, the stench hit before the smoke did, burnt fabric, scorched wealth. Crates of haute couture, blood diamonds, and gently smoking military hardware lay ruined, gasoline pooling in concrete channels. Claudia was already there, hands shaking theatrically, crocodile tears glinting as cameras clicked. Someone destroyed everything, 50 million gone, my reputation, my future wrecked by this brute force. Enzo ignored the plea, gaze scanning the scorched floor, then snapping to Delia. Walk with me, tell me what's off. She moved among the debris, heels silent on ash, eyes locked to the ruined keypad by the charred manager's office. On impulse, she pressed a remnant button sequence, 81257. The keypad pinged green, though the door was melted inward. I told you she's dangerous, Claudia spat, voice shrill. She breaks things every time she shows up. Enzo held up a hand, stopping the noise. His focus was fixed on Delia's stillness, the kind of concentration that looks through, not at. Suddenly, the warehouse's Wi-Fi router flickered to life. Delia's phone vibrated, a notification from the assets server which shouldn't exist outside Valentia internal networks. She opened it and her eyes widened. Claudia used her credentials half an hour before the fire, transferred insurance and mortgaged inventory to a dummy corp. She was betting her enemies would torch the goods, then cash out. Claudia shrieked, but Enzo's enforcer, a barrel-chested man with a mailed fist, clamped a hand to her arm. The traitor inside who? Enzo barked. Delia's gaze locked on Claudia's phone as another notification blipped, an encrypted message from a rival Russian syndicate. The Valentia heiress colluded with Rudko's crew, Delia reported evenly, showing the message to Enzo's ever-present lieutenant. Insurance fraud, evidence laundering, and tip-off to destroy Bank property in one sweep. The witnesses, cops and capos alike, went stone quiet as recognition dawned. Claudia tried to wrench away, voice trembling with hate. You think he'll ever choose you? You're nothing, you don't fit this world. Enzo didn't speak. He only crossed the space, took Delia's jaw gently but undeniably in one hand and turned her face up so all could see. His voice was glacial steel. Look close, she's the only one who fits beside me. A hush and then from his enforcer, orders, sir. Enzo's eyes never left Delia. Erase her empire, start with every crate bearing Valentia's mark. In the swirl of panic as Claudia was dragged out, Delia extracted herself from his hands, turned to the crowd and said, without falter, let it burn, the numbers never lie. As fire crews swarmed, Enzo's crew set the torch. Bianca's empire smoldered, the evidence too thick to deny. Late that night, with the city's edge still curling in smoke, Enzo led Delia to the penthouse above Central Park. It was fortress and crown both, walls sheathed in dark walnut, marble floors glittering in the city's pale glow. A new world, silent as sunrise, arched before her. He poured her another drink, the gold of it reflecting off bulletproof glass. Delia stood with her back to the view, heart thundering not from fear but from possibility. She was never your equal, Enzo said simply, sliding a signet ring from his smallest finger and setting it on the counter between them. You showed them all, without you none of this could stand. She took the ring not delicately but with the confidence hammered by humiliation and tempered in fire. For an instant, the old wounds flashed, Claudia's words, her exclusion, the endless cycle of being too much in a world always asking her to be less. But the feeling didn't linger. Enzo stepped close, hand settling on the back of her neck. It's over. They'll write your name in every ledger from here to St. Petersburg, Delia. She looked up at him, the past falling away. If I'm too big for someone, that someone was never big enough. Outside, headlines flashed, Valentia Holdings liquidated in overnight blaze. Syndicate power shift. Within the hush of glass and gold, Delia claimed her place. Not as the girl who apologized, but as the woman who made empires kneel. Thank you for listening to Delia's Rise. Don't forget to like this story, subscribe for more dark romance tales, and tap the bell so you never miss a midnight empire burning. Enzo's presence commanded the space, deliberate, unsmiling, yet oddly gentle. He traced the signet ring with one calloused thumb and regarded Delia as if she had crossed some vital threshold, stepped without flinching into shadow and flame. The city sprawled below them, 10,000 lights, 100 ambitions drowned for every skyscraper risen. Delia curled her fingers around the ring. The cool gold bit against her palm, heavy and real. She could still taste the cinders clinging to her skin, sense the raw, animal panic that had rippled through Claudia's peers as walls and lies fell. None of that frightened her now. What alarmed her most was the silence that lingered, a hush brimming with promise and uncertainty. Enzo poured himself a scant measure of whiskey, then set the decanter aside. "You know what comes next," he said after a moment. "There's always someone who wants to fill a broken throne." Delia's breath caught. Nothing's ever just victory and quiet, is it? He gave her a sideways look. Quiet is an illusion in this world, but respect, real respect, is rare. She looked down at the signet, turning it between her thumb and forefinger. "You're marking me, making sure they know I'm untouchable." "I'm marking you as my partner," he said, voice a notch softer, stripped of performance. "Not property." Still, his posture was that of a wolf just after the kill, wary and assessing. Delia's throat tightened not with fear but with an odd, fierce gratitude. She sat on the velvet bench facing the window, the Manhattan skyline like a lit fuse below. Claudia won't stay quiet, she never does. Enzo's lips twisted. She doesn't have a syndicate left to shout for her. She might sell information if she feels desperate, but you made it so no one will trust what she says. All the proof we collected, it's already with my contacts on the force and the international banking groups she tried to scam. By noon, she'll be boxed out from Vienna to Valparaiso. Delia exhaled long and slow. Still, she'll try to paint this as a vendetta. I can read that in her, she's always foundationally aggrieved. "She won't matter," he shrugged. "People like her, they rage until they're bored or ruined. Let her rage. The world needs to see you standing at my side now." Delia's laugh was short and edged with disbelief. "That's rich coming from you. 6 weeks ago, you barely said 3 words to me at those meetings, just nodded when I showed you the ledgers." Enzo's gaze cut to her, a dry smile ghosting across his mouth. "You were the only one in the room honest enough not to flinch. Even then, I trust people who bleed for the numbers." She gestured at the stunned hush beyond the bulletproof glass, where the world was already reordering itself along axes she'd shifted. "So what does standing at your side mean, Enzo? The accountants don't usually get the sweet up top." His answer was silence, thick with meaning. At last, he moved to stand behind her, his hands heavy on her shoulders, a king's touch, grounding and certain. "It means you call your shot. You tell me what you want." Delia closed her eyes, letting the warmth radiate across her bones. She thought of her years behind closed doors, behind the scenes, overqualified but ignored, her shape and shadow an afterthought to glassy-eyed socialites and hungry men. Claudia's words lingered, too much, not enough, never right, and Delia let them smolder. She inhaled, claimed the space in her lungs, and found her answer. "I want them to see me as I am. I want the next gala to end with my name carved in the stonework, not the guest list. I want you, and not from the shadows." Enzo gripped her shoulders harder. "Done," he murmured, promise and command in equal measure. He bent, breath warm at her ear, and Delia startled at the rawness behind his low words. "Tomorrow, I'll announce you're not just my chief auditor, you're my consigliere, my right hand." He paused, the admission unexpectedly naked. "My future." A flush crept high on her cheeks, but this time she didn't shrink from the attention. "That'll be a sight. Wait till Claudia hears." Enzo laughed, an ugly, delighted, almost boyish sound. Let her choke on it. A sudden vibration hummed against Delia's wrist. Her phone always on, always anxious, even as the world turned its wheels around her. She flicked the screen with her thumb. A new headline, "Massaro rises as Mafia power broker," read the scroll banner. Underneath, a photo snapped by some unseen hand in the warehouse. Enzo standing with his hand on her jaw, fire licking behind them, framed as prophecy. She handed the phone to Enzo. "We're already tomorrow's gossip." He read the headline and shook his head. "Gossip fades, legacy keeps its ledger." Delia's smile faltered, seriousness returning. "What if the numbers turn against us? What if this all falls?" He knelt beside her, his sighs unsettling in its intimacy. Enzo took her face in both hands. Then we count again. You taught me that the only thing that never lies are the numbers. A slow beat passed between them. Delia nodded, shoulders falling into new certainty. For the first time, she saw not just the ruthless Don, but the man beneath, ruthless, battered, clinging to the rare grace of trust. Claudia's going to try something, Delia said at last, some lingering anxiety threading into hope. She's too clever and too angry. Enzo let out a breath. She might, but you beat her at her own game before, and if she tries again, she'll find nothing left to burn but herself. He squeezed her hands. You're not alone, Delia, not now, not ever again. She looked at the signet ring glinting in her palm, her sigil, her armor, the world's new cipher. The city's sharp light traced her shadow on the glass, full-figured, upright, unconquered. Tomorrow, I want my own office. Not the windowless one downstairs, she said, voice teasing but thrumming with new confidence. Enzo grinned, wolfish and proud. Top floor, name on the door, you write every policy, stamp every book. Anyone says different, they answer to me. She laughed then, breathless and vibrant. Something in the room broke, years of being overlooked, shunned, passed over, and Delia let the break widen. She let herself take up the space she earned. Outside, the sky bruised with coming dawn. Manhattan prowled toward morning, and inside the penthouse, Enzo lifted a glass in salute to her. To the future, Massaro. Delia raised her own glass, the gold burn of whiskey sharp and sweet against her lips. To a new ledger, she said, her eyes shining. To us, Enzo finished, his tone finally openly tender. They made good on their oath with savage efficiency. By noon, Claudia Valencia's name was liquidated from every ledger, an erasure as final as death. Rumors swirled, exile in Monaco, a yacht without anchor, a gilded cage. Delia skimmed each headline, collecting them like chips cached at a table she now owned. Enzo's announcement dropped at high tea when the city was all nervous energy and candied lies. Miss Delia Massaro assumes the office of consigliere effective immediately, Enzo declared, his voice echoing through the House Corinthian. All syndicate business flows through her hands. Any challenge, any insult, answer to me. The news shook the underworld. Old family dons raised eyebrows, financiers murmured approval, and a few clear-eyed rivals, men who had underestimated her, suddenly excused themselves from the table. As twilight set on the city, Delia's first true test arrived. A note, thin linen paper, hand-delivered with a single black tulip, landed on her new desk on the penthouse floor. The calligraphy was unmistakably Claudia S. Your numbers won't save you forever. I am not finished. Delia held the note for a long moment, then folded it with precise, methodical care. She pressed the folded edges flat against her desk. One of Enzo's lieutenants watched from the doorway, anxious. Need us to search the building, Miss Massaro. Delia shook her head, her gaze cold, steady. She'll try to frame me, she always overreaches. What's the first rule, Marco? The lieutenant straightened, answering by rote. Anticipate, insulate, count everything. Good, convene the lawyers, audit the Valencia properties again, find what she missed. She'll want to burn us in court, prove she only owns ashes. She dismissed Marco and stared at her reflection in the window. This time, the woman who looked back was formidable, dangerous, unbowed. The next day, Claudia Valencia re-emerged for her final gambit. Through intermediaries, she petitioned the Don's council, accusing Delia of fraud, embezzlement, and betrayal of Omerta. The evidence was thin, a doctored spreadsheet, a blurry photo, forged signatures. Delia attended the hearing, stone-faced, pearls at her throat, emerald silk cutting a new silhouette of power. The other Dons watched Claudia shriek, her hands quivering over the false ledgers. Some pitied, some sneered. When Delia approached the council's table, she did not defend herself. She opened her own laptop, projected each ledger's forensic metadata onto the council's gold-leafed wall, traced Claudia's digital fingerprints, exposed each false timestamp, and redirected wire transfer. Her voice was firm, calm, the old pain burning away in each line of numbers. Claudia Valencia forged evidence in her panic, Delia said, not gloating but absolute. The only sums that add up are hers. The rest, as you see, is noise and sabotage. This syndicate deserves better than petty frauds. The council's vote was swift. Claudia, exiled and disenfranchised, stripped of all claims. As Claudia was removed, shrieking curses and threats, Delia remained composed, refusing to look away. When the doors closed, the dons rose. Many bowed, a rare honor. Delia accepted with a shallow nod, authority radiating from her core. Enzo's eyes found hers across the room, full, bright, proud. Outside, rain had begun to fall, a hush over the city, closing one age, opening another. In the weeks after, Delia's name became legend. She chose her staff with care, old enemies reformed, new talent unpolished but loyal. The syndicate's ledgers grew fat again, not from skimmed tribute, but from blunt honesty and her mathematician's ruthlessness. The next winter solstice, Delia strode into the Valencia mansion not as a shadow, but at Enzo's side. The guests parted, none daring a slight. Claudia's old clique treated her with wary reverence. The house was alive with whispers. Massaro, she saved the empire. I heard she audits every deal herself. She's the only one who ever told Enzo no and lived. Late that night, Enzo led her to the balcony, away from the music and lights. You asked for your name in stone, Enzo said and pointed. Below, the Valencia fountain's new rim blazed gold, D-M-A-S-S-A-R-O, consigliere etched in marble, illuminated for all to see. Delia's breath hitched. She placed her hand over the cool carving, grounding herself. She felt Enzo's arms come around her, certain, safe. Do you regret it? He whispered. She shook her head, joy mixing with disbelief and relief. Never, she murmured, not a second. He pressed a kiss to her hair. The world will always try to shrink you, Delia. Promise me you'll never let it. She leaned back into him, heart full and fierce. Not even if the world burns. Above them, the city shimmered, endless and alive. Delia Massaro stood unbroken, a name writ large in glass and stone, too bold for erasure, too true for fear. At last, she took her place beside the king, not a prize, not a footnote, but the reckoning all others feared to count.